What's up, boys? Welcome back to another video. Today I wanted to talk to you guys about hotkeys and control groups. So, obviously, as you guys know, StarCraft is unplayable without the hotkeys. Like, the most simple thing I could say is that everyone knows that clicking on the SCVs instead of building them with S takes a lot of time, takes a lot of your APM, attention, everything. So you need to use hotkeys, but it also goes for other things like camera hotkeys, you know, not having to click on your minimap or anything to jump between bases, and of course control groups as well. Now, first time I want to tell you guys what I think is a good layout for hotkeys. I'm just playing as the AI, so I'm just here to show you guys the hotkeys and stuff. I'm going to talk to you guys about the best layout for hotkeys in my opinion, and then I'm going to share my hotkey setup with you guys as well. I'm going to be talking about the standard layout of hotkeys, by the way. I don't have any experience using grid or the core or anything like that. So I'm just going to be talking about the standard layout. Now, the most important thing is that you put all of your hotkeys close together. A good example of this is patrol, for example. As you can see, I have my patrol on Z. And the only reason for that is because it's on the left side of the keyboard. If you play with a standard layout, all your keys are on the left side. But you have some random keys like patrol is normally on P, lift is normally on L. Now mine is on space, as you can see. I think the first thing you should do is rebind most hotkeys so they're on your left side. Now I have a few that I didn't really manage to squeeze in on the left side myself, and that's okay. But try to make sure you don't have to move your hand over the keyboard that much in general. That's a good first step. An important thing for hotkeys as well is that you should get good hotkeys as soon as you can. For example, in my career, I actually didn't really do this. I played with really bad hotkeys for a long time, and then you get used to a certain setup, and then you need to change it all up again, you know. So I think it's the best to just get your hotkey setup going from the start. Like, if you don't have a good hotkey setup now, you should go ahead and do it, because it's also you need to get used to it. Like for me, I started putting hotkeys on the left side of my keyboard after like 4 years of playing, and then I started putting camera hotkeys like 7 years after I started playing, and it becomes such a hard task to get used to. But if you get it right from the start, that's very important as well. Now, I think that's very debatable for Terran usually, is the production hotkeys. Like, should you have them all on the same hotkey, like this? As you can see on the 4, I have the barracks, the starport, and the factory. Or should you have them all split, like this? Now, to give you guys the optimal answer here, is that I think it's actually really good to have both. I don't do this because for me, I don't know, it was kind of hard to get used to because I've been playing for so long and it feels like a bit of effort. But like this, you get the benefit of having them all on the same hotkey, which is that you can rally, you know. Imagine you want to rally them to a depot, you have them all on the same hotkey, you all have to do one click. If you don't have that, you have to do like that. You need, you know, triple the actions pretty much. Now the negative side of having them all on the same hotkey is that if you want to make a medevac, you have to tab twice to get to the starport, right? As you can see. This is usually the function tab, by the way. And it takes longer to build. So the ideal setup, I think, if you want to put the effort for this, if you want to, you know, if you don't mind spending the APM, is to have them both. So I think Maru is a player that uses this. I don't think I've seen it anywhere else. But the optimal setup is to have them both. So you have all the production on one. In my case, it's on hotkey 4, and then you also have the factory and starport separate as well. You don't need the barracks separate as well, because if you select the hotkey with all of them, it will select the barracks first, of course. Now, besides that, there's also a problem by using too many hotkeys. Like, I know there has been players that try to use like 5 army hotkeys, but it just gets a little bit too much. Like, if you have like only spellcasters, maybe it's okay, but for Terran, a common late game would be, for example, you have a big bio army, you have a bunch of liberators, you have a bunch of ghosts, and then if you're gonna hotkey all, because you have to split them up a bit, right? If you start hotkeying everything and there's a run by here, let's say you have your ghost on this and your ravens on let's say if your Ghost on 2, your Ravens on 3, your Army on 1, Liberators on 4, something like this. If you start getting run by it, let's say someone puts Lings Ultras on one base and Lings and Ultras on the other base, you're gonna have to split your Ghost and maybe your Ravens as well, whatever unit you have. And it becomes really hard to just manage this with hotkeys. The best Terrans in late game for all Terrans, that's probably Maru. For Europeans, it's probably Sol. I noticed that they actually don't really hotkey their units that much. So I would recommend to not overdo it. Personally, I have 3 army hotkeys. I think that should be the maximum. If you think you can handle it somehow, you can put more than that, but I have 3. So the way I do it, another good tip by the way for Terran players, is that Q and W are not used normally. So my army hotkeys are 1, 2 and Q. As you can see, I rebound the 9th hotkey here to Q. So I'm selecting this Hellion with Q right now. But if you're new, honestly, you can get away with using 1 hotkey for a long time. All you want is your army on a hotkey to be able to respond fast. If you get a bit higher level, you can start using 2. You know, maybe if you start making ghosts, you can separate the ghosts, something like that. But yeah, try to build that up a bit slower. Like starting with 3 army hotkeys, I think it's just a little bit too much, to be honest. So start with 1 and work up to a maximum of 3, I would say. In my case, I have 1, 2 and Q. So if you want to know, my usual army setup is that if I play against Protoss, for example, I'll have my Bio on 1, I'll have my Ghost on 2, and my Air Army on Q. And usually when I do drops, in the early game, I don't like in early game you don't use the hotkeys yet, so it's easy to put them on 2 or Q. In the late game I don't really hotkey my drops because then you would overwrite your actual army, right? Now another tip, so I said you have Q and W available, I talked about it in a few of my other videos as well, is that I think it's really important to hotkey your upgrades. So if you play Bio, it's going to be the engineering base, if you play Mech, it's going to be the armories. So you're gonna want to put your E-base on a hotkey. In my case I have them on W. Terrans also don't use W, so that's where my engineering base are gonna be. Now, you know, I already told you guys most of my specific hotkey layout. I think the most outstanding ones are I use space as lift, because it's more on the left side. It's very easy to press, obviously, if you have your hand on the left side of the keyboard. Then I have patrol on Z. For camera hotkeys, by the way, normally it's like F3, F4, F5, F6, but I can't really reach those keys properly. Like if I want to do Control F5, you might have this issue as well. I actually have to bend my arm a lot, like it's very tough for me to reach those buttons. So what I did is I use F3, F4, then I use the button left of 1, like tilde or grave or whatever it's called, and I also use tab. So that way I have 4 camera hotkeys, they're all on the left side. One thing I wouldn't recommend, you guys notice I actually have every button on the left side, is caps lock. I've been using it, but it's actually pretty hard to press that consistently. Like I noticed that sometimes I would accidentally hotkey a unit over it or something like that, like another location. Because it's so close to shift and tab, it's actually pretty hard to consistently press that safely in the same pattern. So I ended up mis-hotkeying a lot. So I would recommend not to use caps lock, but any other button on the left side of the keyboard is very usable. Now one thing I have to say is that normally the tab function is the one of the abilities. So you can see in the bottom right, I'm switching my abilities with the tab button. But since I don't use tab, I bound this one to the back mouse button on my mouse. Now if you don't have this, I think you really should keep tab. Tab is really useful. For example, imagine you accidentally have a ghost with your bio. You won't be able to stim unless you either get the ghost out of it or use the tab function, which is the unit priority ability. So you can use tab as long as you find another key for that function, because it's very important. Now, yeah, so that's my control, my camera hotkeys, F3, F4, grave, tab, and I used to use caps lock, but because I messed it up a lot, I stopped using it, and that's it. And besides that, I haven't changed too many things actually. I think one thing I didn't manage to change, like I said, is the planetary. Planetary is also on P, so you should also find a key on the left side of the keyboard if you manage to do that. And it's really not that many steps, you know. If I log onto a new computer at a tournament, I feel like I need to change like 5 things, and that's about it. Obviously, you need to rebind the 9th and 10th a hotkey here to Q and W. That's also what I have, as you can see. These two are in Q and W. And yeah, that's pretty much it for my layout. Now another thing I also wanted to discuss quickly with you guys is the use of F2. Of course, F1 is a perfectly fine hotkey. I don't think you should change it. When you have like 10 AFK SCVs, you can do Control F1. Like, let's see, you know, just Control F1 and you have all your idle SCVs and you can just click them somewhere. That's super useful. Now F2, I also think is a very useful button, especially for Terrans. There's a few situations where F2 really helps. For example, back in the 3Rex Reaper era, it's really easy to grab all your Reapers with that. And in general, sometimes you just need to respond fast. If you're getting attacked and you didn't see it coming and you don't have your army together, you're gonna have to F2 to get a useful fight out of it. Else it might just be too slow. In some cases, the hotkeys just you know, sometimes you panic and it's bad, but a lot of time F2 is actually very useful. Now, the way I use F2 pretty much is because well, sometimes you have drops, right? Sometimes you have units at the watchtower. Now, there's actually two ways around this with F2. One of them is the way Maru does it, which is pretty genius. I'm gonna explain it to you guys. And one of them is the way I do it. So basically, if I F2 my army, I will go around the map and I will shift click my drops out of the F2 and the one at the watchtower, and then I will hotkey my army. That's one way to easily hotkey it. Sometimes you have like a little army over here protecting the Terran and a squad here in the natural. And that's an easy and fast way to actually hotkey all your units while shift clicking away the drops. Now the way Maru does it is actually pretty smart. I've tried a little bit, but I also didn't spend time to get used to it. Is that if you want to F2 across the map, you could imagine you have a drop queued up. You could F2. I'm going to show it to you guys, okay? It's easy. You have a drop queued up, so you go here, you click somewhere in the minimap, right? And then shift, drop there. What you could do is you could select your entire army and you could shift attack. And because of the shift, your entire army is attacking, but these are still going to execute their first command first. You see, they're going to drop, and then after they're going to attack towards wherever you clicked. So you send the drops, and you can F2, and then shift attack instead of just attacking. Normally you would just A move. Now you shift attack, because they're still going to drop first, as you can see, but you still have your entire army while attacking. That's a very easy way to use F2 as well. I think it was Maru that... I don't know who else does it. Someone told me about this actually. I don't even remember. But it's also a pretty easy and genius way to use F2. And in general, I think F2 is pretty useful. Obviously, the worst one is when you panic. Like, you see a unit coming and you quickly F2 and your drops come back and stuff. So you do need to use it situationally. But I actually think F2 is a pretty good button. In my case, I didn't have any trouble with my camera hotkeys. Like I said, I already have 4 set up. I had 5 before. And I kept it just there. And that's it. I think that's pretty much what I wanted to discuss about hotkeys. If you guys have any more questions, please leave them below. I hope you enjoyed this video as well. And yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe. And let me know how everything works out. And see you guys for the next video. Adios.